The knock came exactly 5 minutes after she clicked, "Confirm order." Crystal thought it was the florist. It wasn't. The man filling her doorway wore a $1,000 suit and a smile that could kill. Ashton Fabio, the most dangerous name in the city. The man who owned every dark corner she'd been hiding in for 3 years. He was holding her white peonies. "You ordered flowers," he said, stepping inside without invitation. "I thought I'd deliver them myself." Her blood turned to ice. "How did you find me?" His answer stopped her heart. "I've always known where you were." You are welcome, my viewers. Thanks for always following up on the channel. Kindly tell us in the comments section the exact time and location you are watching from. We would love to know so we can serve you better. Crystal's hand froze on the doorknob. The man standing in her hallway shouldn't exist in her world. He was tall, devastatingly composed, dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than 6 months of her rent. His dark hair was styled with casual precision, and his eyes, God, those eyes, were the color of smoke and steel, currently fixed on her with an intensity that made her lungs forget how to function. But it wasn't his appearance that sent ice through her veins. It was recognition. Ashton Fabio. The Ashton Fabio. The man whose name was whispered in fear across every borough, whose empire stretched from the waterfront to the financial district, whose face she'd seen exactly twice in 3 years. Once in a newspaper, once in a nightmare. And he was holding her birthday flowers. Crystal Forest? His voice was smooth, cultured, with an edge that suggested violence was always one wrong word away. "I believe these are yours." She couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. The white peonies, her favorite, the one she'd ordered from that small online florist as her one annual indulgence, looked almost obscene in his hands. Too pure. Too delicate. There's been a mistake." Her voice came out strangled. Every instinct screamed at her to slam the door, to run, to grab the go-bag she kept under her bed and disappear into whatever new identity the federal marshals could manufacture. But he was already stepping forward, and she was already stepping back. No mistake. He moved into her apartment with the confidence of a man who'd never been denied entry anywhere. His gaze swept the space, the modest furniture, the blank walls she'd never decorated, the life she'd kept deliberately small and forgettable. "You ordered them at 2:47 p.m. Requested delivery between 5 and 6. It's 5:05. Crystal's back hit the kitchen counter. "Where's the delivery person?" "I sent him home." Ashton set the flowers on her coffee table with surprising gentleness, then turned to face her fully. Up close, he was even more formidable. 6'3" of controlled power and dangerous grace. "We need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about." Her fingers found the knife block behind her. She wasn't stupid enough to think a kitchen knife would stop a man like him, but it was better than nothing. "I don't know who you think I am." "You're Crystal Forest, formerly Crystal Morrison. 28 years old. Moved to this city 3 years ago from nowhere, with a background so clean it's obviously fabricated. You work remotely as a copy editor, never go to the same grocery store twice in a row, and every year on March 15th, you order yourself white peonies." The room tilted. He knew. Oh God, he knew everything. "You witnessed something you shouldn't have," Ashton continued, his tone almost conversational. "Testified. Disappeared into federal protection. And somehow ended up hiding in my city, under my nose, for 37 months. What would you do if the person you feared most knew exactly where you'd been hiding? Drop your thoughts below." Crystal's hand closed around the knife handle. "Are you here to kill me?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. "If I wanted you dead, Crystal, you would have been dead 2 years and 9 months ago. That's when I first found you." The words hit like a physical blow. "What? You made a mistake. He moved closer, and she raised the knife. He didn't even glance at it. You ordered Thai food from a restaurant 3 blocks from your old life. Use your real first name. Small slip, but enough. My people traced it within 72 hours. She couldn't process this. Couldn't reconcile the nightmare scenario with his calm delivery, with the fact that she was still breathing, still standing in her apartment instead of buried in a shallow grave. Then why? Because you're not my enemy. Ashton stopped just out of knife range, and for the first time, she saw something other than cold calculation in his eyes. Something that looked almost like regret? You witnessed Carlo Renzetti ordering a hit. You testified against his organization. And when his people started hunting for you after his conviction, I made sure they never got close. The knife trembled in her grip. You're lying. Am I? He reached into his jacket. She tensed, but he only pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen, then held it out to her. Recognize him? She didn't want to look, but her eyes betrayed her. The photo showed a man crumpled in an alley, very clearly dead. She'd seen him before, outside her building 8 months ago, watching her. She'd reported it to her handler, moved apartments the next week. Vincent Marasco, one of Renzetti's enforcers. Ashton pocketed the phone. He found you last June. I handled it before he could make a phone call. Crystal's legs gave out. She slid down the cabinet, knife clattering to the floor. Why? That, Ashton said quietly, is the conversation we need to have. Crystal stared at him from the floor, her mind racing through impossible calculations. 3 years. He'd known for almost 3 years and done nothing. No, not nothing. Protected her. From his own world. From men who killed for a living. It didn't make sense. Get up, Ashton said, but his tone had softened fractionally. When she didn't move, he exhaled and lowered himself into her armchair. An incongruous sight, this Prince of Darkness sitting in her threadbare furniture like he belonged there. I'm not going to hurt you, Crystal. If that was the plan, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Then what do you want? She pulled her knees to her chest, hating how small she felt. How vulnerable. I want you to understand something. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and the movement brought him closer to her level. Made him seem almost human. Carlo Renzetti wasn't just another crime boss. He was a disease. What you saw that night, what you had the courage to testify about, it wasn't an isolated incident. It was who he was. Who his entire organization was. So you're saying he deserved prison? She couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. That makes you a good guy? I'm not a good guy. Ashton's smile was sharp and humorless. But I have rules. Lines I don't cross. Renzetti had none. When you put him away, you didn't just save yourself. You saved dozens of others who would have suffered under his reign. Crystal searched his face for deception, for the angle, for whatever game he was playing. But all she saw was a strange, fierce sincerity that terrified her more than threats would have. You still haven't answered my question, she whispered. Why protect me? Ashton was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic. Inside, the silence stretched thin and fragile between them. Because I know what it's like to witness something that changes you forever, he finally said. I was 14 when I watched my father execute a man who'd betrayed him. The man begged, pleaded, promised he had children. My father shot him anyway, then turned to me and said, This is who we are, Ashton. Never forget it. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't the calculated crime lord anymore. This was something raw, something real. I had a choice after that, he continued. Become what my father was, or become something different. I chose something different. I'm still a criminal, Crystal. I still operate outside the law. But I have codes. Standards. And one of them is that innocent people don't pay for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not innocent, she said quietly. I ran. I hid. I let people believe I was dead. You survived. His eyes locked onto hers. That's not a crime. That's courage. She wanted to look away but found she couldn't. There was something magnetic about him, something beyond the obvious danger and power. A complexity she hadn't expected. A depth that scared her because it made him real instead of just a monster from her nightmares. The flowers, she said suddenly. Why did you deliver them yourself? Ashton's expression shifted. Something almost sheepish crossed his features, though it was gone so fast she might have imagined it. Because today is your birthday. Your 28th. And for 3 years, I've watched you order yourself the same flowers on the same day. You never celebrate. Never invite anyone over. You just exist. Like you're waiting for permission to actually live. The observation cut deeper than any threat could have. Because he was right. She'd been so focused on surviving that she'd forgotten what living felt like. I thought. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I thought maybe you deserve to know that someone saw you. That you're not as invisible as you think you are. Crystal's throat tightened. This is insane. You're a mafia boss. I testified against organized crime. We're supposed to be enemies. Are we? Ashton tilted his head slightly, studying her. Or are we two people who understand what it means to be trapped by circumstances we didn't choose? You chose this life. Did I? His laugh was bitter. I was born into it. Raised in it. My last name is a life sentence. Crystal. Just like yours became one the moment you witnessed that murder. She hated that his words resonated. Hated that she saw herself in his eyes. Two prisoners of different kinds of cages, both searching for something that felt like freedom. What happens now? She asked. Ashton stood, and she tracked his movement warily. But he only walked to the flowers, adjusting one that had tilted in its bouquet. Now, he said, you decide if you can trust me. Because Renzetti's people haven't given up. They're getting closer. And your federal protection? He turned to face her. It's compromised. The floor dropped out from under her. What? Someone leaked your location. Not to Renzetti's people. Yet. But the information is out there, being sold to the highest bidder. His expression hardened. You have maybe 72 hours before someone dangerous figures out where you are. Then I'll run again. You'll die. The words were flat, final. They're watching the bus stations, the airports, the rental car agencies. They've learned from the last 3 years. This time they won't let you disappear. Crystal's heart hammered against her ribs. So what are you saying? Ashton extended his hand to her. An offer, a lifeline, a devil's bargain all rolled into one. I'm saying let me protect you. Properly this time. Not from the shadows, but right here, where I can see every threat coming. His voice dropped, becoming almost gentle. Trust me, Crystal. Just for a little while. Until we figure out who betrayed you and how to fix it. She stared at his hand. At the choice he was offering. Safety in the arms of danger. Protection from the predator himself. And if I say no? His hand didn't waver. Then I'll respect that decision. And I'll attend your funeral in 3 days when they find you. Crystal didn't take his hand. Not yet. She pushed herself up from the floor on her own, her legs unsteady but holding. If she was going to make this decision This insane, possibly suicidal decision. She'd do it standing on her own 2 feet. If I agree to this, she said slowly, I need answers. Real ones. Not carefully crafted half-truths designed to manipulate me. Ashton lowered his hand but didn't step back. Fair enough. How did you really find me? The Thai food story is convenient, but I don't believe that's all it took. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're right. The Thai food was the first crack. But what confirmed it was your copy editing work. You corrected a manuscript for a publisher I have financial interests in. Your edits had a particular style, precise, elegant, with a preference for M-dashes over semicolons. The same style as articles you'd written under your real name years ago. The specificity of it made her stomach turn. He'd been paying attention to details most people wouldn't even notice. That's terrifying. That's thorough. He didn't apologize for it. In my world, details keep you alive. Or in your case, they kept you alive without you knowing it. And the men you've killed to protect me? How many? 4. The answer came without hesitation. Vincent Marasco was the 3rd. The first was actually an accident. A driver who asked too many questions about your building. I thought he was reconnaissance. Turned out he was just a curious civilian. Wrong place, wrong time. Crystal's blood went cold. You killed an innocent person? I killed someone who was getting too close to you. Ashton's expression didn't change. Didn't show remorse or justification. Just stated fact. Later, I confirmed he had no connection to Renzetti. But by then it was done. I don't expect you to forgive that. I don't forgive it myself. But I won't lie about it either. The honesty was somehow worse than a lie would have been. Because it meant he was capable of killing without certainty, acting on suspicion alone. And yet he was also capable of admitting it, of carrying that weight. You're asking me to trust a man who just confessed to murder. I'm asking you to trust a man who's kept you alive when a dozen others wanted you dead. He moved to her window, looking out at the street below. Your handler. Agent Douglas Chen. You trust him. He's FBI. He's supposed to protect me. He's also $300,000 richer as of last week. Deposited in an offshore account under his wife's maiden name. Ashton turned back to her. Someone bought your location from him. Crystal. The same man who's supposed to keep you safe sold you out. She felt the words like a physical blow. Agent Chen had been her lifeline for 3 years. The only person who knew where she was, who she'd become. The man who'd promised her that she was safe, that the system would protect her. You're lying. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. Chen had been distant lately. Harder to reach. Their last check-in, he'd seemed distracted, almost guilty. Ashton pulled out his phone again, navigated to something, then handed it to her. Bank transfers. Dated and documented. I have people who specialize in finding things like this. The evidence was there in black and white. Deposits. Withdrawals. Patterns that told a clear story of betrayal. Crystal's hands shook as she gave the phone back. Why would he do this? Debt. Probably. Gambling, mistress, medical bills. Does it matter? Ashton's voice was hard now. The result is the same. You're exposed. And the people coming for you won't deliver flowers and ask politely for your trust. This can't be happening. She pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to think through the panic. I did everything right. I followed every rule. I disappeared. I became nobody. You became exactly who you needed to be to survive, Ashton said quietly. But survival isn't the same as safety. And right now, You need the latter more than ever. Crystal dropped her hands, looked at him, really looked at him. Tried to see past the tailored suit and the dangerous reputation to whatever truth lay underneath. If I agree to let you protect me, what does that actually mean? Where would I go? What would I have to do? You'd come with me. Tonight. To a property I own outside the city. Secure, private, impossible to breach without my knowledge. You'd stay there until I've identified everyone who knows your location and dealt with them. Dealt with them. The euphemism wasn't lost on her. Yes. He didn't soften it. I'll eliminate the threat. Permanently. It's the only way to ensure you're truly safe. And then what? I just go back to my life? Pretend none of this happened. Then you get to decide what your life looks like. Really decide. Without Renzetti's shadow hanging over you. Without looking over your shoulder every time you leave your apartment. He paused. You'd be free, Crystal. Actually free. The promise of it was intoxicating. Dangerous. Everything she'd wanted for 3 years wrapped in the offer of a man who trafficked in violence and power. Have you ever had to choose between 2 impossible options? Tell us what you'd do in the comments. How long would this take? She asked. A week. Maybe 2. And during that time, I'm supposed to just trust you? A man I met 20 minutes ago? A man whose entire existence is built on crime. Ashton crossed the space between them in 2 strides. He didn't touch her, but his proximity was overwhelming. Heat and intensity and something electric that made her pulse race. You're supposed to trust your instincts, he said, voice low. And your instincts kept you alive for 3 years before I ever interfered. So trust them now. What do they tell you about me? Crystal met his gaze, forced herself not to back away. Her instincts were screaming, but not in fear. In something else entirely. Something that recognized the predator in front of her but also saw the strange, twisted honor underneath. They tell me you're dangerous, she whispered. I am. They tell me I shouldn't trust you. You probably shouldn't. But they also tell me. She swallowed hard. That you've had 3 years to hurt me and haven't. That you're here now, being honest when you could just take me by force. That maybe, God help me, maybe you actually mean what you're saying. Something shifted in his expression. Softened. Your instincts are good. Are they? Because they're also telling me that going with you is either the smartest decision I'll ever make or the last one. It's the smartest, Ashton said. I promise you that. Promises from a crime lord, Crystal said with a shaky laugh. I'm sure those are worth a lot. Mine are. There was steel in his voice. I don't make them lightly. And I don't break them. Ever. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it physically hurt. Because the alternative was running again, hiding again, living in fear again, and she was so tired of being afraid. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay. I'll go with you. The relief that crossed Ashton's face was so genuine it startled her. You won't regret this, he said. I already do, she admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. He smiled then, a real smile, not the calculated expressions he'd worn before. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less dangerous. Almost kind. Pack light, he said. Just essentials. We leave in 15 minutes. 15, that's not enough time. It has to be. The longer we stay here, the more vulnerable you are. He was already moving toward her door, pulling out his phone. I'll have my car brought around. Bring clothes for a week, toiletries, anything you can't live without. Leave everything else. Crystal looked around her apartment, Her carefully constructed life of nobody and nothing. 3 years of existing in the margins, and she was about to abandon it all on the word of a man who killed for a living. She was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Crystal. Ashton's voice stopped her at the bedroom doorway. Thank you for trusting me. Don't thank me yet, she said. We'll see if I survive the week first. But as she grabbed her duffel bag and started throwing clothes into it, her hands had stopped shaking. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't running away from something. She was running toward it. The car was a sleek black Mercedes that probably cost more than Crystal had earned in her entire life. The driver, a silent, stone-faced man Ashton introduced only as Roman, didn't speak as he loaded her single duffel bag into the trunk with the reverence one might show a piece of luggage from royalty. Crystal slid into the back seat, and Ashton followed, maintaining a careful distance between them. The leather was butter-soft, the interior spotless. Everything about it screamed wealth and power, a world so far removed from her second-hand furniture and thrift store clothes that it felt like stepping into a different dimension. It's about 40 minutes outside the city, Ashton said as Roman pulled smoothly into traffic. The property is registered under a shell corporation, 3 layers deep. No paper trail leading back to me or you. You've done this before. It wasn't a question. Protected people? Yes. Brought them to this particular property? He glanced at her. No. You're the first. Something about that admission made her chest tighten. Should I feel special or terrified? Both, probably. The corner of his mouth quirked. The house has state-of-the-art security. Cameras, motion sensors, panic rooms. 6 of my most trusted men rotate shifts on the perimeter. You'll be safer there than you've been anywhere in 3 years. Crystal watched the city lights blur past her window. And you? Where will you be? With you. Her head snapped toward him. What? I'm not leaving your protection to anyone else. Ashton's tone was matter-of-fact, as if this was the most logical conclusion in the world. If someone's coming for you, they'll have to go through me first. You can't just abandon your entire operation to babysit me. I'm not babysitting you. I'm protecting an asset. But the way he said it, soft, almost tender, made the clinical words sound like something else entirely. And I have capable people managing my business interests. They'll survive without me for a week or 2. The intimacy of it hit her then. A week or 2. Alone with him. In a house far from the city, from witnesses, from anyone who could help if this went wrong. She must have tensed because Ashton said, there are separate bedrooms. Separate spaces. You'll have privacy, Crystal. I'm not. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I'm not keeping you prisoner. You can leave whenever you want. I just hope you won't. Because I'd be dead within days. Because I'd rather you stayed alive. The rawness in his voice caught her off guard. I've spent 3 years making sure of it. I'd like to keep that record intact. They drove in silence for a while. The city gave way to suburbs, then to dark stretches of wooded road. Crystal tried to memorize the route, old habits from her time in protection, but Ashton noticed. You won't need to run, he said quietly. Not this time. I've been running for 3 years. It's hard to just stop. I know. And something in his voice suggested he really did know. But you're not alone anymore. That has to count for something. The words settled over her like a blanket, warm and terrifying all at once. Because she had been alone. So desperately, crushingly alone. And now here was this dangerous man offering her something she'd forgotten she needed. Community. Connection. Someone who saw her. We're here, Roman said, the first words he'd spoken since they left. The house emerged from the darkness like something out of a dream. Modern architecture, all glass and clean lines, nestled in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. Lights glowed from within, casting golden rectangles across the manicured lawn. It was beautiful. Isolated. Perfect. Or perfectly dangerous, depending on perspective. Ashton helped her out of the car, his hand warm and solid around hers, and led her up the stone pathway. The front door opened before they reached it, revealing a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an efficient demeanor. "Mr. Fabio," she said with a slight nod. "Everything is prepared as requested." "Thank you, Gabriella. This is Crystal." He gestured between them. "Crystal. Gabriella manages the household. Anything you need, she can provide." Gabriella's expression softened fractionally as she looked at Crystal. "Welcome, miss. I've prepared the east bedroom for you. I hope you'll be comfortable." "I'm sure I will be," Crystal managed, though her voice sounded distant to her own ears. The interior was even more stunning than the exterior. Vaulted ceilings, minimalist furniture, art that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. But it was warm too. Soft lighting, plush textures, the faint scent of something cooking that made her stomach remind her she hadn't eaten since breakfast. "You hungry?" Ashton asked, as if reading her mind. "Starving, actually." Gabriella prepared dinner. Nothing fancy. Pasta. Salad. "I wasn't sure what you liked." The thoughtfulness of it disarmed her. "You asked her to cook for me?" "I asked her to make you feel at home." He shrugged off his jacket, and she saw the shoulder holster underneath, a stark reminder of who he was, what he was. "Come on. We can eat, and then I'll show you around." Dinner was surreal. They sat at a table that could have seated 12, just the two of them, eating carbonara that tasted like heaven and making small talk like normal people. Like they hadn't met under the strangest, most dangerous circumstances imaginable. "Tell me something real," Crystal said suddenly, setting down her fork. "Not about crime or protection or any of this. Something about you. The person, not the title." Ashton considered her across the table. "What do you want to know? What do you do when you're not running an empire? What makes you happy?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Music. Classical mostly. Rachmaninoff. Chopin. I play piano when I need to think. To remember I'm human." The confession was so unexpected, so vulnerable, that she couldn't help but smile. "A piano-playing mob boss. That's very Godfather of you. I've heard that before." He smiled back. "Your turn. What did you want to be? Before all this. Before witness protection and running." The question pierced something deep. "A journalist. Investigative reporting. I wanted to expose corruption, hold powerful people accountable." She laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it? I witnessed a crime trying to get a story, and it destroyed everything." "It didn't destroy you," Ashton said firmly. "You're still here. Still fighting. That takes strength most people don't have. Or stupidity. Courage and stupidity often look the same from the outside." He leaned back in his chair, studying her with those intense gray eyes. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Not because of fate or destiny or any of that nonsense, but because you made choices, hard choices that led you here. And maybe, just maybe, those choices are about to pay off." Crystal wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this nightmare had a purpose. An ending that wasn't just more running and hiding. "What if you're wrong?" she whispered. "What if this all falls apart?" Ashton reached across the table, And this time when he offered his hand, she took it. His fingers wrapped around hers. Warm, strong, steady. "Then we'll face it together," he said. "I promise you that." And in that moment, sitting in a stranger's house with a dangerous man's hand in hers, Crystal felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Crystal couldn't sleep. The east bedroom was luxurious. King-sized bed with sheets that felt like clouds, blackout curtains, an ensuite bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Everything designed for comfort. But comfort was a language she'd forgotten how to speak. At 2 a.m., she gave up, pulled on the robe Gabriella had left folded on the dresser, and padded barefoot into the hallway. The house was silent except for the distant hum of security systems. Soft lights illuminated her path as she wandered, exploring this temporary prison that felt more like a palace. She found the library first, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books in multiple languages. Then a gym, a home theater, a sunroom that would be breathtaking in daylight. And then she found the music room. It was tucked away at the end of the west wing, door slightly ajar. Piano music drifted out, something melancholic and beautiful that made her chest ache. She recognized it after a moment. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. She pushed the door open slowly. Ashton sat at a grand piano, still dressed in his shirt and slacks from dinner, though he'd rolled up his sleeves. His fingers moved across the keys with practiced grace, his eyes closed, his entire being focused on the music. In the low light, he looked different. Younger. Vulnerable. Human. Crystal must have made a sound because his eyes opened, his hands stilling on the keys. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't." He gestured to the bench beside him. "Couldn't sleep. Too much thinking." She crossed the room, hesitated, then sat down beside him. The bench was small enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "You're really good. 15 years of lessons will do that." His fingers found the keys again, playing a simple melody this time. "My mother insisted. She said every civilized person should know music." "Your mother." Crystal latched onto the detail. "You don't talk about her. She died when I was 16. The melody shifted, became something sadder. "Cancer. Quick and brutal. My father buried himself in work afterward. I buried myself in this. I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a long time ago." But the pain in his voice suggested otherwise. "She would have liked you, I think. She always said the strongest people were the ones who survived impossible situations with their humanity intact." The compliment made her throat tight. "I don't feel very strong most days. Strength isn't about feeling powerful. It's about continuing when every part of you wants to quit." He played a few more notes, then stopped, turning to face her fully. "Why couldn't you sleep? What are you thinking about?" Crystal drew her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. "Everything. This whole situation. How my life went from ordering birthday flowers to sitting in a mobster's safe house in the span of 3 hours." "Mafia boss," he corrected with a slight smile. "Mobster sounds so provincial." "Despite everything," she laughed. "My apologies. How my life went from flowers to sitting with a mafia boss in his safe house." "Better." The smile faded. "What else?" She bit her lip, debating how honest to be. Then decided honesty was all she had left. "I'm thinking about why you really did this. The protection, the flowers, all of it. You say it's because I'm not your enemy, because you have codes. But there are probably dozens of people in witness protection hiding in your city. You're not protecting all of them." Ashton was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window overlooking the dark forest. "You're right. I'm not. So why me?" Do you remember the trial? He didn't turn around. When you testified against Renzetti? Every second of it. I was there. In the gallery. Not the whole time. I couldn't risk being photographed. But I watched part of your testimony. He finally looked at her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. You were terrified. I could see your hands shaking from across the room. But you didn't back down. Didn't minimize what you saw. You looked Renzetti in the eye and told the truth, knowing it would destroy your life. I didn't have a choice. You absolutely had a choice. Most people would have recanted, claimed they were mistaken, taken whatever deal his lawyers offered. You didn't. You chose justice over safety. Truth over survival. He moved back toward her, and she had to tilt her head up to meet his gaze. I've met a lot of people in my life, Crystal. Most of them would sell their souls for a fraction of what you gave up. But you? You're different. I'm not special. You are to me. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Crystal's heart hammered against her ribs. Ashton. I know how this sounds. He sat back down beside her, closer this time. I know it's inappropriate and complicated and probably the last thing you want to hear from someone like me. But I've spent 3 years watching you rebuild your life from nothing. Watching you survive. And somewhere in that time, protecting you stopped being about codes or honor or justice. Then what's it about? He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was gentle, reverent. It's about you, he said simply. Just you. Crystal should have pulled away. Should have reminded him, reminded herself, that this was insane. That he was dangerous, that she was vulnerable, that nothing good could come from whatever this was building between them. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned into his touch, just slightly. Just enough. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. Probably the worst I've ever had. His thumb traced her jawline. But I can't seem to make myself care. We barely know each other. I know you order Thai food when you're stressed. That you edit with your left hand because you're ambidextrous but prefer it. That you're brave enough to testify against monsters and kind enough to order yourself flowers on your birthday because no one else will. His eyes searched hers. I know enough. What would you risk for someone you barely know but somehow understand? Share your thoughts below. And what do I know about you? But even as she asked, she realized she knew more than she thought. His honor. His music. His complicated relationship with the violence that defined his world. The way he looked at her like she was something precious instead of something broken. Ask me anything, Ashton said. Right now. No lies, no evasion. Just truth. She should ask about his crimes. About the people he'd hurt. About whether she was just a project to him. A way to feel noble in a life built on darkness. Instead, she asked, Are you going to break my heart? His hand stilled against her face. I'm going to try not to. But I'm not good at this, Crystal. The caring, the feelings. I've spent my whole life keeping people at a distance because closeness is vulnerability, and vulnerability gets you killed in my world. That's not an answer. The answer is I don't know. His honesty was brutal and beautiful. I don't know if I'm capable of being what you need. But I want to try. God help me, I want to try. Crystal covered his hand with hers, held it against her cheek. I'm scared. Me too. Of what? You're the dangerous one. Of this, he admitted. Of feeling something real for the first time in my life and inevitably destroying it. Of you seeing who I really am and realizing you made a mistake trusting me. She turned her head slightly, pressed a kiss to his palm. The gesture surprised them both. "Maybe we're both making a mistake," she said softly. "But maybe mistakes are just chances we're too afraid to take." Ashton's other hand came up to frame her face, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her. Wanted him to kiss her, despite every logical reason not to. But he didn't. Instead, he rested his forehead against hers, breathing her in, letting the moment stretch and settle. "Stay," he whispered. "Not just for safety. Stay with me. I'm already here. You know what I mean." She did. And the terrifying part was that she wanted to say yes. Wanted to explore whatever this impossible thing was between them. Wanted to stop running, stop hiding, stop being afraid. "Ask me again in the morning," she said. "When we're both thinking clearly. I'll ask you every morning until you say yes." "That's a lot of mornings." "I have time." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "For you, I have all the time in the world." And sitting there in the music room at 2 in the morning, with a dangerous man's hands gentle on her face and classical music still echoing in the air, Crystal thought maybe, just maybe, she might believe him. Morning came wrapped in golden light. Crystal woke to the smell of coffee and found Ashton in the kitchen, dressed casually in dark jeans and a Henley that made him look less like a crime lord and more like someone she might have met in a different life. Someone normal. "You cook?" she asked, surprising herself with how natural her voice sounded. "Gabriella's day off." He poured her a cup without asking how she took it. 2 sugars, splash of cream. He'd been paying attention. "I make a decent omelette." Interested. They ate on the terrace overlooking the forest, and for a few stolen hours, the world outside ceased to exist. They talked about everything and nothing. Books they'd loved, places they wanted to visit, the small mundane details that built bridges between strangers. "Tell me about your family," Ashton said, refilling her coffee. "Before all this." Crystal's chest tightened. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 22. It was just me after that. No siblings, no aunts or uncles who gave a damn." She traced the rim of her mug. "Maybe that's why I became a journalist. I was looking for stories because I didn't have one of my own anymore. And now I'm the story. The headline I never wanted to be." Ashton reached across the table, laced his fingers through hers. "Then we'll write a better ending." The days that followed blurred into something unexpected. A strange, suspended peace. Ashton worked from the house, taking calls in his study while Crystal explored the property. She found herself drawn to the library, to the music room where Ashton played for her in the evenings. They fell into rhythms. Morning coffee together. Afternoon walks through the forest with 2 of his security detail shadowing at a distance. Dinners that stretched late into the night. Conversation flowing like wine. And slowly, carefully, the walls between them crumbled. On the 4th night, Ashton taught her to play piano, his hands guiding hers across the keys, his breath warm against her ear as he corrected her finger placement. The intimacy of it was almost unbearable. "You're a terrible student," he murmured, but his smile said otherwise. "You're a demanding teacher." She turned her head, and suddenly their faces were inches apart. The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable. His lips were soft against hers, questioning, and when she answered by pressing closer, his arms came around her like he'd been waiting his whole life to hold her. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Ashton rested his forehead against hers. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "Good. Me too. Means this is real." That night, she fell asleep in his arms on the music room sofa, surrounded by the fading notes of Chopin and the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. For the first time in 3 years, she felt safe. The call came on the 6th morning. Crystal was in the library when she heard Ashton's voice rise in his study. Sharp, commanding, angry. She moved to the doorway, watched him pace with his phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what it takes. Find him. Now. He ended the call, turned, and saw her standing there. The mask slipped back into place, but not before she saw the flash of something that looked like guilt. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing. Business. Ashton. Don't lie to me. Not now. He exhaled, ran a hand through his hair. One of Renzetti's men made contact. He's offering information about who leaked your location. But he wants to meet. In person. Then meet him. It's a trap. You don't know that. I know exactly that. His voice was hard now, the dangerous edge back. This is what they do. They dangle information to draw us out, and then they strike. So what's the alternative? We hide here forever. If that's what it takes to keep you alive, yes. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they felt like a cage closing. I didn't ask you to put your life on hold for me, Crystal said quietly. I'm not. You are. You're playing house with me instead of dealing with this threat. And eventually, Ashton, eventually they're going to find a way in. They always do. Not here. Not to you. You can't promise that. The frustration burst out of her. You can't control everything, no matter how much power you have. Sooner or later, something's going to go wrong, and we'll both pay for pretending otherwise. So what are you saying? His eyes flashed. That this was a mistake? That you regret coming here? I'm saying this isn't sustainable. We're living in a bubble, and bubbles always pop. Then we make it sustainable. I'll move my entire operation. Listen to yourself. She stepped closer. You're talking about appending your entire life for someone you've known for 6 days. That's not protection, Ashton. That's obsession. The word landed like a slap. His expression shuttered completely. If that's what you think this is. I don't know what this is, she said, and hated the tears burning behind her eyes. I don't know if you actually care about me or if I'm just some project that makes you feel noble. Some redemption for all the terrible things you've done. You think I'm using you to feel better about myself? His voice was dangerously quiet. I think you're a man who's spent his whole life in control, and I'm the one thing you can't quite figure out. And maybe that's appealing to you. The challenge of it. Ashton stared at her for a long moment. Then he grabbed his jacket from the chair. Where are you going? To meet the informant. Since apparently, hiding you here is just me being obsessive. The bitterness in his voice cut deep. Roman will stay with you. Don't leave the property. Ashton, wait. But he was already gone, the door slamming behind him with a finality that echoed through the empty house. Crystal sank into his chair, buried her face in her hands. She'd pushed him away. Sabotaged the one good thing she'd found in 3 years of running because she was too afraid to believe it could be real. Because if it was real, and she lost it, she wouldn't survive the grief. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent 3 years afraid of dying. Now she was terrified of living. 4 hours passed like 4 years. Crystal paced the house, checked her phone obsessively though she had no one to call, jumped at every sound. Roman stood guard outside, silent and immovable, offering no reassurance. When the front door finally opened, she ran to the foyer. Ashton stood there, clothes disheveled, a cut above his eyebrow that had bled down his face. But he was alive. Whole. Oh my God. She rushed to him. What happened? Are you hurt? He caught her hands before she could touch his face. It wasn't a trap. What? The informant. He was legitimate. And what he told me. Ashton's grip tightened on her hands. Crystal, Agent Chen didn't just sell your location. He sold it to someone specific. Someone with a personal vendetta. Her blood went cold. Who? Carlo Renzetti's daughter. Elena Renzetti. The name hit like a freight train. I didn't know he had a daughter. Most people don't. She's been in Europe for years, building her own empire. But when her father died in prison last month. He's dead. Heart attack. Natural causes, allegedly. Ashton's expression said he didn't believe in natural causes. Elena came back to settle scores. And you're at the top of her list. Crystal pulled her hands free, wrapped her arms around herself. So this isn't over. It's never going to be over. It will be. Ashton stepped closer. The informant gave me everything. Elena's location, her network, her plans. I can end this, Crystal. Permanently. By killing her. By eliminating the threat. Yes. And then what? Someone else comes after me? Her cousin, her boyfriend, someone who loved Renzetti. She shook her head. You can't kill everyone, Ashton. Watch me. The cold certainty in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, it broke something open inside her chest. I'm sorry, she whispered, for what I said earlier. About obsession, about redemption. I was scared and I lashed out and... You were right. He cupped her face, thumb gentle over her cheekbone despite the violence in his eyes. I am obsessed with you. Have been since I watched you testify 3 years ago. Since I realized someone that brave, that honest, was going to get herself killed unless someone protected her. Ashton. But you're not a project. You're not redemption. You're the first real thing I've felt in a decade, and I'll burn the world down before I let anyone take you from me. His forehead touched hers. So yes, I'll kill Elena Renzetti. I'll kill anyone who comes after you. And I won't feel guilty about it because keeping you alive is the only thing that matters. Crystal's hands came up to grip his shirt, holding on like he was the only solid thing in her tilting world. What if I don't want you to be a killer for me? Then I'll be one anyway. Because that's who I am, Crystal. That's who I've always been. And if you can't accept that... He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. If you can't accept all of me, the violence, the darkness, the terrible things I'm willing to do, then tell me now. Tell me to walk away and I will. She should tell him to go. Should recognize that this was toxic, dangerous, everything she should run from. But she didn't want to run anymore. I accept it, she said. I accept you. All of you. Even knowing what I'm about to do? Especially knowing. She pulled him down, kissed him hard and desperate. Just come back to me. Promise you'll come back. Always. He breathed against her lips. I'll always come back to you. The waiting was agony. Ashton left at dawn with 6 of his men. He kissed her once, long and thorough, like he was memorizing the taste of her, and then he was gone, leaving her with Roman and Gabriella and her spiraling thoughts. Crystal tried to read, tried to eat, tried to do anything but imagine all the ways this could go wrong. It was Gabriella who finally sat her down, pressed a cup of tea into her hands. He'll come back, the older woman said with quiet certainty. Mr. Fabio always comes back. You've known him for a long? Since he was a boy. Watched him grow from his father's shadow into his own man. Gabriella's expression softened. He's never brought anyone here before. Never let anyone see this part of his life. You must be very special. Or very stupid. Sometimes they're the same thing. Gabriella smiled. Love makes fools of us all. Love. The word settled over Crystal like snow. Was that what this was? Could you love someone after 6 days? Someone who lived in darkness, who killed without hesitation, who was everything you should fear. But she did. God help her, she did. The call came at 4 p.m. It's done, Ashton said, and she could hear the exhaustion in his voice. Elena Renzetti is no longer a threat. Neither are the 3 men she had hunting for you. Crystal's knees went weak. And you? Are you? I'm fine. Coming home now. Home. He'd called it home. She was waiting on the terrace when his car pulled up 2 hours later. He climbed out slowly, favoring his left side, blood on his shirt but walking under his own power. Crystal ran to him, and he caught her, held her tight despite what had to be injuries beneath his clothes. It's over, he murmured into her hair. You're safe. Really safe this time. What about Agent Chen? He'll be dealt with. Legally, through channels that can't be traced back to me. He'll spend the next 20 years in federal prison for corruption and witness tampering. Ashton pulled back to look at her. Your testimony against Renzetti? It stands. His empire is dismantled. And now his daughter's network is gone too. There's no one left to come after you. The relief should have been overwhelming. Instead, she felt oddly empty. So I can go back. Resume my old life. Be Crystal Morrison again. You can. His hands framed her face. Or you can stay. Build a new life. Here. With me. Her heart stuttered. You're asking me to. Be with me. Really be with me. Not as someone I'm protecting, but as someone I love. The word came out rough, unpracticed. I know it's fast. I know I'm the last person you should choose. But I'm asking anyway. Crystal searched his face, the sharp angles and dangerous beauty, the eyes that had seen too much violence and somehow still looked at her with tenderness. What would that even look like? She whispered. You're a mafia boss. I'm a former journalist in witness protection. How does that work? Messily. Imperfectly. But together. His thumb traced her lower lip. I can't promise you normal, Crystal. I can't promise you safe or easy or anything close to the life you had before. But I can promise you truth. Loyalty. Protection. And every part of me that's capable of love. That's not a small thing. No. It's everything. She thought about the life she'd lost. The career, the identity, the version of herself that died the night she witnessed a murder. She thought about 3 years of running, hiding, existing in the margins. And then she thought about 6 days of feeling alive again. Of music and conversation and kisses that tasted like coming home. Sometimes the greatest love stories start with the most unexpected encounters. What's the bravest choice you've ever made for love? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Okay, she said. Ashton's expression transformed. Okay. I'll stay. I'll build a new life. With you. She rose on her toes, kissed him softly. I'll choose you, Ashton Fabio. Even though it's crazy. Even though it's complicated. I'll choose you. He kissed her then like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Like she was the answer to questions he'd stopped asking years ago. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Crystal laughed, genuine and free. What? Ashton asked, smiling against her hair. I ordered flowers for my birthday. And somehow ended up with you. Best delivery ever? Best delivery ever, she agreed. And as the sun set over the forest, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Crystal Forest finally stopped running. Not because the danger was gone. Danger would always exist in Ashton's world. But because she'd found something worth staying for. 6 months later, they stood on the same terrace. Crystal wore white peonies in her hair, her new favorite tradition. Ashton's ring sat on her finger, heavy and real. "Any regrets?" he asked, pulling her close. She thought about the journalist she'd been, the woman in hiding she'd become, and the person she was now, stronger, fiercer, loved beyond measure. "Not a single one. Even though I'm. Especially because you are." She kissed him. "You're my unexpected protector. My impossible love. My home. And you're mine," Ashton said. "My salvation. The thing I didn't know I needed until you opened your door and changed everything." "I ordered flowers," Crystal laughed. "And I delivered myself instead." He grinned. "Best decision I ever made." "Second best," she corrected. "The best was asking me to stay." "No, love. The best was you saying yes." And there, wrapped in the arms of the man who'd protected her from shadows, Crystal understood the lesson she'd learned. Sometimes protection comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes enemies become saviors. Sometimes the thing we fear most becomes the thing that sets us free. And sometimes, when you order flowers on your birthday, the universe delivers exactly what you need. Even if it arrives in the form of a mafia boss with a dangerous smile and a heart that beats only for you. Thank you, my viewers, for watching the video till the end. Kindly like, comment and subscribe for more videos.